Do not let your Uber driver cancel your ride while in the car. Sorry this is a bit long. I know this isn't a therapist's office, but this has bothered me for a long time and I just want to get it off my chest. This happened June 2018 in Portland, Oregon. I understand I acted like an idiot in this situation. Since then, I have become much more observant, cautious, and honestly, much more paranoid. I went dancing with friends, and I was really drunk by midnight. Unfortunately, this was back when I had little money, and I realized you could save money by eating very little before going out, and it would take far fewer drinks to get drunk. So I was so drunk I barely remember my friend ordering me an Uber home. My phone was dead, of course. I can vaguely recall them helping me into the car and telling me to get home safe. I don't remember greeting the driver or the first minute or so, but soon after getting in, he asked me how my night was and if I smoked. Honestly, I was just thinking about bed at this point, so I just sort of slurred out that I did sometimes. And then he offered me a joint, and this is the first moment I get sort of nervous and began paying attention. I tell him something like, "I'm really tired and just ready to get home." I think he said something about it being an indica-based joint, and it made for great sleep. Once again, I say something not exactly like no, but not a yes, which he takes as a, "Yes, I'll take that joint now." Once again, I'm still drunk enough I can barely see straight or speak clearly. So when he says, "Okay, well I have to cancel the ride really quick because I can't give it to you while I'm on the clock," or something to that effect, it takes me a second to realize how dangerous that is. And by the time I start to say something, he has canceled the ride and pulls over. We were in an area just east of Hawthorne Bridge, I think, and it was totally secluded. Some empty parking lots, a closed auto body shop, no one in sight. It's starting to hit me. I'm now in the car, not with an Uber driver, but with some stranger. I can't call anyone, and he's trying to give me that weed that could have anything in it. For the next minute or so, we're pretty quiet, or I just can't remember any small talk he tried to make because I was beginning to panic. And every time he handed me the joint, I would fake hits, just breathing it into my mouth and not into my lungs. I felt tired, clumsy, and weak. That kind of drunk where you're almost at the point of nausea, and I knew I couldn't do much of anything to defend myself at that point. I remember vividly being fixated for a moment on the fact that I didn't even have a pair of keys to defend myself with, as my building used fobs for just about everything, and I didn't take my mail key with me. As I'm freaking out, I look up to see if this guy is sort of noticing, and I make eye contact with him in the mirror. He was staring at me, but I couldn't read his expression. Finally, he says something along the lines of, "Well, let's get out of here." I tell him I'll just call another Uber to get home, thinking at this point it might even be safer to walk, and he says, "No, I still have your address, I'll just take you home." For a moment, I was relieved. I guess I wanted to believe him so badly that I would get home safe. I believed him. I tried to calm myself down, thinking he hadn't actually done anything threatening. Maybe he was just your typical stoner guy and I'm overreacting. At this time, I lived on PSU campus in downtown Portland, in the southwest area of the city. He is driving me north on the east side of the river. There are several bridges to our left, and he keeps moving north. He has several opportunities to take an exit to hop over the river and get me back downtown. He keeps skipping them. We keep passing bridge after bridge that could get me home. Up in northeast Portland, there are several large industrial areas that can get very isolated at night. And Portland in general is surrounded by lots of forests, so I knew he could have me in a secluded area very quickly. After he passes it like the fourth area for a bridge, pretty sure it was the Broadway Bridge, I've been racking my brain for a way to make him actually take me home, and say something to the effect of, "Hey, my boyfriend is waiting for me at home," which was true, though I said it in a very meek way. My driver says nothing, but he did take the next exit for a bridge and basically hung a giant U-turn that started me home. Even as we're on the west side of town heading south, I'm still shaking and have my hand on the door handle, thinking about just hopping out at a red light the closer we get to my apartment. My phone is completely dead, and he honestly still has several chances to hop onto nearby highways and speed out of the city. We're getting pretty close to my apartment now, and I'm once again trying to convince myself I'm being paranoid about some stoner that can't navigate the city. Although a few minutes before I was so scared I was crying. So once we get about 2 blocks from my apartment, I lie and tell him it's easiest to stop here and he can let me out. Again, he doesn't say anything but does slow the car. I'm flooded with relief and even feel myself smile. But when I go to open the door, it's locked. I try to lift the lock mechanism manually, but it won't budge. I look up at him, instinctually, to see what's up, and he's got his head turned almost fully towards me, shoulders still facing the road, smiling at me. The worst smile I've ever seen. It looked so mocking, and it just did not reach his eyes at all. I just started crying and asked him to open the door. I was so freaked out and still very drunk, and thank God he did. I will never forget the sensation of vulnerability, not just being drunk in a car with no way to contact anyone, but even as I got out of the car, I kept feeling like he would somehow grab the back of my shirt and pull me back in. As silly as that sounds. When I got home, I found out my boyfriend had actually gone out with friends last minute and wasn't even home. He wouldn't even have known till much later if I hadn't gotten back safe. The next day I convinced myself I was freaking out over nothing, which I realized still could be the case, but in my gut, I had truly felt in danger the night before. Technically, this guy could have been totally harmless, but I still think I should have texted my friend and had her report him. The big thing that made me think of this was recently hearing about how Ed Kemper, the co-ed killer, would go for practice runs, picking up hitchhikers and seeing if he could get the passengers/potential victims to trust him, or how far out of his comfort zone he could push them without saying anything. Obviously, this guy wasn't Ed Kemper, but I hate wondering if that night was a practice run of sorts for my Uber driver. Thanks to whoever reads this whole thing through, I'm at a point in my life where I'm realizing how much danger I put myself in when I was younger, and just depressed as hell, and it has made me both surprised and deeply grateful I'm still here. First encounter with creepy Uber driver. Posted by you/Helias. There was a time in my life where I used Uber a lot. I used it 3 or 4 times per week for 6 months. For me, that was a lot, considering I could use any other transport to get home. During this time, I had at least 3 or 4 creepy encounters with Uber drivers, and by far, this is the most creepy encounter. I was 26 years old, and I was going home from my girlfriend's house. It was Saturday night, around 22 hours. I greeted the driver, and he asked the common stuff. "How are you?" And so then I replied, and asked back. Everything was fine for the first 5 minutes until we passed a bump, and the car jumped up abruptly. The driver said, "Oh, sorry for that. Would it be a shame if you hurt yourself hitting the roof with that bump? Because, you know, a lot of blood would come out of your head and the backseat would be covered in blood." That comment was completely out of the blue, so I just said, "Yeah, but that didn't happen." Then he drove over a pothole. The car shook again significantly, and he said another creepy comment. "Oh, sorry again. That could make your head crash against the window. You would break it and have a serious and messy cut on your head." This time I felt quite anxious, and just replied, "Well, that was not the case." So everything was feeling really strange and uncomfortable at this point, until we came across some road workers crossing the road, ignoring the green light. He then added his awful comment. Look at them. They just crossed ignoring the green light. They are really stupid. I hate stupid people. Trust me, if I had a gun with me right now, I would shoot them. I just tried to ignore that comment because it was completely out of context and he was overreacting. He made another 2 comments about the other drivers and how they were driving that night, and how useful weapons are to teach people a lesson. When we finally arrived home, he finally said, "Oh, this road is really dark and lonely. If you would be in danger, nobody would be able to help you." That final sentence creeped me out, and I realized that there was a high chance that this driver would do something to hurt me. Thank God nothing happened. I just said thank you and goodnight and got out of the car. I then opened the main door of the building and locked it really quickly. He waited for some minutes outside the main door of the building. I noticed this because I was hiding behind the first wall of the stair area. He waited outside for 5 minutes or so. I reported the whole incident with Uber and they sent me the usual response. But actually nobody contacted me back about the incident. Of course, I rated the driver with the lowest score. Driving for Lyft and Uber isn't always safe. Posted by u/juz613. This event I'm about to tell you just happened about 2 hours ago. I'm a 5'7" white, 21-year-old male, living in the Midwest of the USA. I currently live in the biggest city in my state. Now to add some detail that would help you understand why this rattled me a bit. Less than 2 months ago, while I was working at my former job, I was attacked and left with scars and a mild form of PTSD. I don't like admitting I have it, but why hide something that's true? I've come to terms with it. Some of the things that come with the PTSD are nightmares, paranoia, and a slight insomnia. Ever since I was attacked, I have resigned my post from the place I worked. And now, I'm trying to get into my local police academy. It takes a while to get fully accepted into the academy, so I took up driving for Lyft in the meantime. Well, my insomnia wasn't letting me fall asleep, so I figured I'd sign on for a few hours and make some cash. I completed 2 rides and decided to go downtown where all the bars are. Yes, it's a Monday night, but around here the bars still close at 2 a.m. And there are still people that drink until the bar closes and need a ride home. So I was camped out, waiting on a ride request because it was almost closing time for the bars. Where I was camped out was an empty parking lot near the bars. Where I had parked, there was a little island in front of my car. It had a couple of bushes and a pretty big tree. No big deal. After waiting and listening to narrated Let's Not Meet stories on YouTube, I noticed a car pull into the parking lot that I was in. No big deal. People pass through all the time. Due to my paranoia and my experience in law enforcement, I noticed things about the car. The windows were super tinted, almost blackout tinted. He passes by my car and turns right back out into the main drag. A few minutes go by, and the same black Saturn car with blackout tint comes in from a different entrance, and from a different direction he had left in the last time I saw him. This time, he drives by in front of my car, with only the island separating us. Except instead of going at a normal speed like when he had entered, he slowly crept past my car. My car was off and I had the seat reclined while I waited. I don't know if he saw me. I could barely see that it was the same car over my steering wheel. By now, red flags are going up in my mind. My anxiety and paranoia are telling me to leave. I'm kinda strapped for cash and I need the money. The car sits for a few seconds and completely stops and then leaves. I hoped that would be the last time I saw him, but sadly it wasn't. A few more minutes go by and the car was coming back in the parking lot. Except this time, he was on my side of the island. I carefully watched him in my mirrors until the freakiest part happens. He stops right behind my car. When I saw this, I quickly sat up in my seat and rolled down my window, just to show that someone was in the car. My mind kept telling me I was about to be robbed, or worse. I'm a rather short guy, but I have some muscle. But still, I'm no match for a gun, a knife, or multiple people on me all at once. As soon as my window rolled down, the car darted like it was on fire. I had it with that last time. I quickly moved my car to a different area of the parking lot with a better view and an easy escape route. I was only in the new spot for a moment when I finally got a ride request, so I never got to see if the car ever came back. I couldn't remember a plate, and I didn't see anyone inside the car due to the tinting of the car. After I completed that ride, I signed out and quickly came home, calling it a night. I have no idea what the people's intentions were for my car. It's not even really a nice car. It's a white 2006 Chevy Impala. Nothing special. There are hundreds of them in my city. Stay safe, everyone, and always be observant of your surroundings. Lyft driver likes to talk about murdering people. Posted by u/bay007. Just so people know while they're reading this, I reported this to Lyft and the police department in the city the threats were made. This was Sunday night, October 4th, 2020. I was at the airport, about to request an Uber when I checked the Lyft prices. $20 cheaper to take Lyft. So I requested one and almost canceled it because it was taking a while to find someone, when eventually a driver was found. Pretty much as soon as I entered the car and we started driving, he saw where I lived and started talking about murdering people, especially those on bikes, in the city I live. It wasn't just a once-off line either. He kept going on and on about it, how he'd get, quote-unquote, the cold sweats afterwards, and decided he didn't want to feel that, so he'd, quote-unquote, try not to. During this, I'm texting my boyfriend because dude is just making me feel super weird. I wasn't really trying to converse with him, so all of this was unsolicited information. Then he was saying how he was going to do a haunted house and to make it seem super lame, and like it was over, and then once you leave when you thought you were safe, he'd get you. I asked him how would you do that because I feel like a lot of people are really aware of their surroundings, and I would definitely see that coming. Then he said, "You never know, I might just get you tonight." I laughed and I said, "I don't think so," as he's literally pulling up to my apartment. When we parked, he just kept talking, so I'm like, okay, thumbs up, bye. And I had to unlock the car door myself, and when I got out to grab my luggage from the trunk, he almost took off with it. It was weird too, both when he picked me up and dropped me off. He'd just stand behind me like a weirdo. It was super uncomfortable. He definitely knows which apartment I live in, and I'm pretty sure Lyft fired him. Edit, it's been a few weeks and I haven't seen him or his car hanging around my place even once. We'll continue to keep an eye out for him though. Fake Uber driver tried to pick up my boyfriend and I. Posted by u/alien_bob_. In Myrtle Beach in 2016, my boyfriend and I had ordered an Uber from our hotel to a restaurant. When you get an Uber, the type of car, a picture of the driver, and their name are usually visible on the app. We were waiting on an older gentleman driving a little white sedan to come get us when a dumpy-looking van pulls up. There was a man behind the wheel, a man in the passenger seat, and two in the back. One of the men in the back slid the van door open and asked, "Are you?" Insert my boyfriend's name. As soon as we saw how many people were in the van and that none of them were the picture of the man on the app, we immediately knew that something was off. First off, Uber has a rule where you can't have non-customer passengers in the car with you when making pickups. And second, the whole situation just felt fishy to both of us because nothing matched what the app said. My boyfriend lied and said we were not the ones that called an Uber, and they slammed the door and drove off. A few minutes later, our actual Uber driver pulled up. We told him what had happened, and he said it wasn't the first time he'd heard that from customers. I have never forgotten that, and wondered what would have happened if we had gotten into the van that day. We also never figured out how they knew my boyfriend's name. unless they hacked into Uber's database somehow to access current Uber requests. If anyone has any other ideas about how he would know his name, please let me know. Moral of the story is always be cautious if your Uber driver shows up and the car/driver do not match what the app says.